These are real stories from Reddit, and some of them are so terrifying they might stay with you long after you hear them. If you're listening at night, don't say I didn't warn you. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the darkest AskReddit threads ever posted. What's your downright scariest real-life story? Thousands of users shared moments that pushed them to the edge, near-death experiences, unexplained encounters, and situations so disturbing they still can't talk about them without shaking. So grab your headphones and get comfortable, because every story you're about to hear actually happened. Late in the 1980s to early 1990s in Northern Ireland, I was a kid, around 7 or 8 years old. The sun was shining, and it was early afternoon. My dad needed to return a library book on the Crumlin Road in Belfast, a Protestant and Loyalist area. We were Catholics, and that place was notoriously dangerous at the time. Still is, to a lesser extent. So I was already nervous just knowing where we were going. My dad seemed completely calm. He didn't look worried at all. It's not like we had Catholic written on our foreheads, but he did tell me that if anyone asked me my name, I had to give them a fake one. Something that sounded Protestant instead of Catholic. We continued walking until we reached a road leading to an intersection. Across that intersection was a predominantly Catholic area called the Ardoyne Road. We weren't heading that way. We were turning right down a long winding path, but up ahead, near the intersection, we saw a group of men. One man kept running back and forth, relaying information between small clusters of people. Some were staring across the road toward the Catholic area. Others were speaking to someone sitting in a parked but running car. One man stood out, tall, long hair, leather jacket. Even as a child, something about the scene felt wrong. My dad's demeanor suddenly changed. He went quiet and serious. He grew up in Belfast during the worst of the conflict, so he recognized these signs immediately. That confirmed to me that we were not safe. Since we weren't walking toward them, we crossed to the right and kept going. That's when a middle-aged woman with short red hair approached us directly. She looked nervous and focused, and she walked straight toward us with purpose. She immediately began questioning my dad, who he was, where he was coming from, what we were doing there. She tried to sound casual, but she wasn't hiding her suspicion very well. I felt terror rising so fast that it felt like my whole body was buzzing. I imagined my dad being shot. I imagined myself screaming. I imagined not making it out. I didn't know why, but something deep inside me recognized that we were in real danger. My dad answered her questions carefully, pretending to dislike Catholics, pretending to blend in. He even showed her the library book as proof of why we were there. When she asked my name, I gave her the fake one. I'm sure she saw how terrified I was. My dad eventually cut the conversation off politely and started walking away with me. I could feel her eyes burning into our backs as we left. After about 30 seconds, I glanced back and saw her returning to the group of men near the intersection. We rounded a corner and found ourselves at the top of a long, steep road. The library was at the very bottom. On one side was a fence, and on the other, a row of houses. It felt like walking into a funnel with only two ways out, forward or back. Both felt dangerous. Halfway down, we realized we were being followed. My dad told me to run ahead and check if the library was open. I hesitated, but he insisted. I turned to look, and it was the tall man in the leather jacket. I ran. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I checked the library door. It was open. Then I sprinted back up the hill. When I returned, the leather jacket man was already walking away in the opposite direction. My dad looked calm, but his body was tense, like something had just happened. He told me everything was okay. He later explained that once I was far enough ahead, he turned around to face the man directly, ready for whatever was going to happen. He said he expected violence. But as soon as he turned, the man immediately put his head down, turned around, and walked back the way he came. Within the hour we were in that area, a Catholic taxi driver was murdered on that very street. The terrible feeling we had that something awful was unfolding around us was real. When the news came on TV that night, I knew we had walked directly into the planning of a murder. I could have identified the woman and the man in the leather jacket if the police had asked, but that was never going to happen. There was no way my dad would put himself or me in danger by acting as witnesses. To this day, I still remember how the air felt. Heavy, wrong, Like the entire street already knew someone wasn't getting out alive. This next story is a powerful and difficult memory from someone who lived through something no child ever should. My dad tried to burn us alive, and he doesn't remember any of it. I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I know I wasn't younger than 8 or older than 10, and even now I'm still traumatized by what happened. My father grew up as a black man in the mid-1950s through the 60s, and he went through a lot of mistreatment both at home and out in the world. He eventually joined the Vietnam War right after high school, near the very end of it. Because of everything he experienced, he'd developed a serious drinking problem and a drug problem that I didn't fully understand as a child. As you can guess, this eventually made him abusive, mostly toward my mom. I don't remember a lot of my childhood because I blocked most of it out, but there are a couple of nights I will never forget. I was the youngest sibling, and I was named after him before I changed my name later in life. Because of that, I didn't experience much physical harm myself. I was quiet and tried to stay out of trouble. It was a normal Saturday night. My siblings and I were watching TV, my dad was out drinking with his brother, and surprisingly, my mom was at a neighbor's house, an older single woman, just enjoying herself. A couple of weeks before this, my dad had gotten hurt at work and was taking strong pain medication. I'm guessing that, combined with a large amount of alcohol and possibly drugs, led to what happened next. The next moments are a little fuzzy, but from what I remember, both of my parents ended up home at the same time and started arguing loudly. My dad accused my mom of being unfaithful. We had a big glass table in the living room, and he was so angry he slammed his fists on it and shattered it. After that, everything turned physical. He started attacking my mom. She fought back while my brother and I stood there crying and begging them to stop. My sister, who was about 13, jumped on him, and he threw her into a door hard enough to break it. My dad's brother, who was in his 60s or 70s, was trying to calm him down, but nothing was working. Eventually, my dad walked out of the house. My mom pulled us onto the couch and held us while we cried, thinking it was finally over. But then my dad came back in. He started pouring some kind of liquid over all of us. We didn't realize what it was at first, until the smell made it obvious it was gasoline. He even poured a line outside the front door and started trying to light it. Thankfully, his lighter wasn't working. My sister ran out the back door to one of my dad's siblings who lived a couple of blocks away. My uncle managed to stop my dad from trying to set anything on fire. When he came back inside, I remember grabbing my dad around the waist, crying and telling him I had gas in my eyes. I think hearing that snapped him out of whatever state he was in, because he suddenly started apologizing, checking if I was hurt, and then he ran off. The worst part isn't that my mom didn't press charges, it's not even that he was only in jail over the weekend. The worst part is that he doesn't remember any of it, while I think about it almost every day. I still have a relationship with my dad today, although it's strained. He's completely sober now, and he's an amazing grandparent to my siblings' kids who he sees every day. But he's also part of the reason I don't think I could ever have children. The last story showed how danger can come from inside the home, from the very people meant to protect you. But sometimes danger comes from the world outside, from places you think you know, and roads you've traveled 100 times. This next story is a reminder of how quickly everything can change and how a single moment on the road can decide whether you live or die. I crashed on a frozen highway, and a stranger saved my life. I was born and raised in the southern United States, but I moved to Minnesota in the early 2000s. Originally, the plan was to attend the University of Minnesota because they had a strong atmospheric science program, and I already knew a few people who lived up there. I ended up not going to college at all and just lived with friends. During that time, I started dating a Canadian girl. My place was about a 4-hour drive from the border near the Minnesota Arrowhead. It was just after Christmas that year, and I was driving back after spending time with my girlfriend. It was around dusk when I left. Her house was about an hour from the border. Crossing back into the US was no problem, and I headed down Highway 61 like I'd done dozens of times before. For anyone not familiar with it, that highway runs right along Lake Superior. Late at night, it's mostly empty, just locals from the tiny towns nearby, or truckers going between Duluth and Thunder Bay. The weather was clear, the road was clear, so I kept my usual speed of about 60 miles per hour. Everything was fine until I hit a patch of black ice. I completely lost control of my car. I didn't know if I was going to slide into the woods on one side or into the partially frozen Lake Superior on the other. Luckily, the car went toward the woods. I barrel rolled a few times and somehow landed on my wheels. I ended up in a shallow ravine, mostly hidden from view unless someone was specifically looking for me. The temperature was in the single digits. This was before cell phones were everywhere, and there was zero signal in that area, so I was alone, freezing, and stuck beside a desolate highway where someone else might hit the same black ice and crash right into me. I'm not sure how long I was out there. Eventually, a local man found me and took me to the hospital. Somehow, I got away with only a few cuts and bruises, and aside from being extremely cold, I was okay. When we went back to look at my car, the state police officer at the scene said that by all accounts, I should have died, either from the crash itself or from freezing to death. I had no way to contact my friends or my girlfriend, and I was at least 4 hours from home. The man who found me, his name was John, offered me a place to stay until someone could come get me. I stayed with him for 3 days until a friend from Duluth was able to pick me up. John passed away in 2018 at 70 years old. By then, I'd moved back to the South, but we stayed in touch through email. I will never, ever forget him. After the crash, I was stranded in a place I didn't really know. At night, on a road hardly anyone traveled that late, in the dead of winter. Every minute that passed without seeing headlights, I thought I was going to freeze to death. I was absolutely terrified. But then John came along, and he quite literally saved my life. I'll always be grateful for him. These 3 stories remind us just how unpredictable life can be, how danger can come from strangers, from the people closest to us, or from the world around us without warning. But they also remind us of survival, of strength, and of the incredible impact one person can have in the darkest moment of someone's life. If you want to hear more true stories like these, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if these stories stayed with you, or made you think, please leave a like. Your support helps me keep bringing you real experiences from real people all around the world. Thank you for listening, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.